Donna with Helist, and today I'm going to ask kind of a controversial question. And is it are tarot cards, and even oracle cards for that matter, evil? And where do they come from? And what are they even for? So there's going to be lots of different opinions and lots of different thoughts, but I'm here to share with you my history with it, but also some of the history that I looked up. And I'm going to give you a little hint, and you'll see that I even have some decks right behind me. So maybe you can already see that I do enjoy using them. But I'm going to get into the history first and just give you a little bit of kind of knowing and information around where these tarot cards actually originated from, and oracle cards or something else. So the tarot actually originated in Italy during the 1430s. Okay, so it was created with allegorical illustrations giving the cards this very distinct look and feel. The game was played and it was called Tarocchi. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but it's similar to a modern game of bridge, believe it or not. So these cards were developed just for entertainment purposes originally. And then they shifted when this French oculist named Jean-Baptiste Alliot, hope I'm saying that correctly, got his hands on them, and he was so fascinated with the symbolism and started using them for divination purposes. So when mystics got their hands on it and they started to look at probably the archetypal energy, the symbolism on the cards, it became this tool to understand and probably tap into divine consciousness. Now, this is the thing. Every tool can be misconstrued if it's used depending on the intentionality behind it. But if you're using, let's say, tarot cards in such a way that is to learn and to understand and look at the imagery, and maybe it sparks something for you. Maybe it opens up your own intuition and it tells a story that supports you in, coming closer to understanding yourself or understanding something about your life. So there's a lot of, great ways they can be used, but in some religions, they're considered to be evil. And maybe because there's a lack of understanding, or maybe it's about the intentionality or the energy behind it. But I want you to think of like the actual piece of paper of a card. Like, here's a card. This card, for instance, this is neutral. There's nothing about this piece of paper. And then there's an imagery, and every different person looking at this could come up with a different way of seeing and understanding what this card actually means, right? But when you study something and okay, there's the numbers, there's archetypal energies, there's symbolism, then it starts to tell a story. And that's when it gets really interesting. But I know I've been around people that think cards are evil. I actually had somebody that I was working with one time tell me she couldn't work with me because her pastor or priest told her that cards are of the devil. And I personally work for God. And so I was not offended at all. I understood that it was not in her ideology. It didn't work for her, and it was fine. But I think the better question is when you start to kind of understand that there's imagery and there's different aspects that can illuminate different things. And maybe you start to see patterns when you pull these cards, and there can be beautiful perspectives offered that can facilitate personal growth. I think really it's all about the intention and mindset that you bring to your practice, especially if it's a tarot practice. And there's oracle cards as well. And oracle cards, most of the decks I've come across, they all have these beautiful, sweet messages. You pull a card and it can, if you're asking about a specific area of your life, you can shuffle a deck. I'm going to show you my deck. This is called the Psychic Tarot deck, but you could shuffle a deck like this, and you can, essentially just kind of feel for, okay, when does it feel like it's time to stop? And then you can get a card. And this is the movement choices and decisions card. And you can look at this card, and this one is very similar to a tarot where there's lots of symbolism and it's steeped in, an illustration, but there's all these different colors and all these different things. And so I could look at this card and it's called movement choices and decisions. So depending on what you're asking about, it's just telling you, yeah, you have to make a choice, you have to decide, you have to go. And so instead of thinking that this is something that is evil, it might just be something that is informing you of something that's already living inside of you, some information, some way of being. And I really think it has to do with all the energy that you are using when you are tapping into something like this. And I encourage you, I'd love to hear your comments on what you think of these tarot cards, or you think of oracle cards, and how you've used them and how they can support your life. My favorite practice is to, usually on a Sunday or Monday, I'll pull a few cards so that I can tap into the week ahead. And I ask a very simple question. And I just say, what would be really supportive for me to work with or look at for the week ahead? And I don't see it as predictive, as more as I also see it as, I don't see it as predictive, just much more prescriptive. And prescriptive being, it's kind of giving me an outline of like, hey, look out for this, or look at this energy, work with this. And I think that when we can understand that we are sovereign beings that are co-creating our reality, and that as long as you're not putting your power into cards and you're staying in the space of like, this is just a tool and you're using it with neutrality, then it could be something super fun and super great. And it's been such a great addition to my life. I've been using cards for over 20 years. And I have never once thought that this is determinant of my life. I look at it as, oh, this is illustrating some beautiful story on this card, and it's my intuition that is interpreting what that means. And if you've been studying, let's say, the Rider-Waite deck for years, then you understand that there's already meanings and symbolism that is so steeped into it, and you can just work with that. And there's all these beautiful different spreads and all these things that you can do that can support you. So put in the comments below what you think of, tarot cards or oracle cards, and how they've supported you, or maybe how they've been the opposite for you. I'm so curious. Have a beautiful rest of your day.